Soul Sparks, where resilience meets revelation. I'm your host, Saima, and today we are honored to speak with Steph Ward, a man whose personal struggles became the spark for purpose. After decades in the business world and a long walk through addiction and family turmoil, Steve now leads a non-profit ministry dedicated to intentional living. He's here to show us that no matter how far we fall, there's always a next step and a path to peace. So, Steph, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Simon. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm positive I'll enjoy the experience.
You're warmly welcome, Steph. It's my pleasure to have you here. So, Steph, you talk about the next right step as a life philosophy. So, can you share that where did that idea first show up in your healing journey?
Yeah. Well, it wound up being validated by lots of different areas, but where it started was my personal and family experience in the world of recovery. I was in the business world for 38 years. I worked with IBM for a long time, which is an international company, as you know. And but for many of those years, I was what is called a high functioning alcoholic, which meant I did have an alcohol problem, but I hid it very well from other people. So it was I would suggest an addiction, but it's not one that kept me from being productive at work and things like that. And I explain it that way because a lot of people need to understand just because they're still high functioning, they may go to work, they may, still be, play productive roles in their family. That doesn't mean they may not have problems. So I did have an issue for a while, as did my wife, and our older son, when he was in his teenage years, developed a problem as well. So I was exposed to the world of recovery, and for anybody who's been through it, they will recognize that the concept of taking, one step at a time, living one day at a time, is throughout recovery, so it's a common concept. And my experience in recovery, I guess, led to a few epiphanies I had that led me to do a lot of research on how people live life well. And I found that this concept of taking small steps is validated in psychology, neuroscience, wellness, personal development, professional development, spiritual teachings. So it is present, it is common in the world of recovery, but it's also been validated for many, many decades across a lot of disciplines. So it's a proven fact and phenomena that people can improve their lives and even transform it by taking one small step at a time. But that's where it came from.
Mhm, mhm. That's such a powerful origin story for something so simple yet profound. Like hearing how that idea emerged from such a personal place in your healing journey gives it so much weight. And like you've shared that piece of your story, it brings so much heart and honesty to the wisdom you carry today, I must say.
Yeah. Well, it's an important message for people to hear, particularly people who are hurting, say they have an addiction problem, or maybe it's a mental health problem such as depression or anxiety, or maybe they're just overcome by the challenges and the troubles of this world. Sometimes we tend to feel hopeless and perhaps even overwhelmed. And when we are besieged by those challenges, it can be hard to take the next step. We just get sort of frozen and we isolate, and therefore perhaps the problems even get worse. So it can be a very encouraging and practical, idea for people who are struggling to consider. Is to say, I don't have to change my whole life today. That's too big a goal for me to get my hands around, but I can take a small step. I can do the next right thing that will move me in a positive direction. And when people do that, what they find is it's encouraging. They see, wow, that made me feel a little better. I made a little progress. Maybe things aren't so hopeless after all. So therefore, I feel encouraged to take one more next right step. And pretty soon they've built up momentum. And so even though it's a simple concept, it can be profoundly transformational if people will just accept it to just keep taking the next right step.
Mm-hmm. That makes so much of sense, Steph. Now, you have been through addiction and loss. So, can you share that what inner mindset helped you not just survive but rebuild your life with purpose?
Yeah, I think even more broadly, there are some big values that are part of our worldview or our mindset that all of us have inside of us, whether we know it or not. And those are the things that kind of define how we look at the world. And in our research, we identified 5 areas that we talk to people about a lot. One is meaning. In other words, what's the meaning of life? What's the point? Another is purpose. You know, what am I supposed to achieve in my life? A third is identity. Who am I really? Am I a good person, a bad person, some of both? Who am I? The fourth is contribution. What am I designed to give back to the world? And the fifth is community. How can I work with and collaborate with and have relationships with others to have a more fulfilling life? So those big concepts, those big ideas about meaning, purpose, identity, contribution, and community form how we think about the world, even if we're not aware of it. So I think I would suggest to people that it's helpful to them to sometimes step back and think about those big ideas, because if you recognize that we do have meaning, right? That life has meaning. It's not random. That life does have meaning, and that each of us, wherever we are in life, we have a purpose that's specific to us. We all have an identity. We all have a set of gifts and talents we've been given. We all have a contribution. There are things that we can give back to the world. And finally, we are meant to do so in community. If people recognize that and accept those things as their mindset, as part of their worldview, it gives them a foundation, a foundation that's a positive one, that looks at life in the world in a way that says, okay, yeah, even when I'm having, struggles, there's a bigger picture at play, and it hopefully gives them hope and perseverance and the desire to take that next right step. So it's kind of getting the big picture view around their mindset and worldview, and then on a practical basis, day to day, just taking the next right step. So,
Hmm. The way you have like turned such deep pain into purpose really speaks to the strength of the human spirit and yours in particular. Like that's incredibly moving, and you have spoke that so openly. Like your story carries a resonance that goes far beyond words, and it's like a reminder that meaning can emerge from even the darkest chapters.
yeah, yeah, those are good comments. And another thing we try to do is to change people's understanding about the nature of struggles. Because when we have an issue, whether it's a mental health issue or it's an addiction issue or it's just our life circumstances, we tend to think that it's just us, that we're the only ones struggling. But whether it's mental health issues or addiction, the fact of the matter is everybody struggles, right? Everybody has insecurities. Everybody has anxiety at times. Everybody feels down at times. I would even suggest that we're all addicted to something, because when you look at the definition of addiction, that means it's a compulsive habit that we repeat over and over again that has negative consequences, and we find it hard to stop. Well, we've all got those kind of habits, right? Maybe it's a substance or a behavior that's addictive in nature, but maybe it's anger or control or
Mm.
workaholism or people pleasing, or, we all have issues. And when we accept that, it actually can be very encouraging, to know that, hey, everybody's struggling. It's not just me. And it's okay not to be okay sometimes, but I don't have to stay that way. There are steps I can take that will improve my life. Yeah.
Uh, you have left a 38-year business career. So how did that leap feel?
It was being in business was wonderful. I enjoyed it. Um, but as I said, we are able to kind of portray an image and even act in a way that's productive, even though we may be struggling at times. Um, but being in the business world, I think it taught me a lot of practical lessons that have helped. I left IBM to found Steps Ministries 7 years ago, and it's been a wonderful background to have been in business because now we can run a nonprofit, that's actually focused on business concepts like effectiveness and efficiency. So that's part of it. But the other thing is it's positioned me to do is to talk to people who are also in the business world and help them understand that, even though they may be an executive or a manager or a good employee in a company, um, that doesn't mean they're not human, right? We're all people, and so that they're still going to have issues. And a lot of people at work feel anxiety by it, or they feel insecure about their ability to achieve the goals that their company has set for them. So work creates a lot of pressures on us as well, and
Mm-hmm.
we tend to take those home with us, right? They give us anxiety and they affect our relationships, and vice versa. The opposite thing happens as well. If we're struggling at home personally, or if someone in our family is really hurting, we bring those problems to work with us. So we talk to companies and organizations about the fact that the best way for you to have a company that's going to perform well is to embrace this concept we call organizational wellness, and to understand that your organization will achieve wellness when you focus on your people, because every company or organization is made up of its people, and whether if they're achieving well-being at home and at work, it's going to make them better employees or better workers or better leaders, and that will contribute to the success of the company or the organization as well. So all of these things, all these parts of life are interrelated, because we're kind of holistic or integrated human beings. So the way we are at work is affected by how we're doing in our real life, and that's what we talk to organizations about.
Mm-hmm. That's such a courageous shift, like hearing how you describe that leap felt after nearly 4 decades in a completely different world really highlights the depth of your calling. And like, thank you for sharing that part of your journey with such honesty. It's a powerful reminder that it's never too late to realign with purpose, right?
That's right. That a lot of people don't spend much time thinking about what is my purpose. you know, they probably kind of build a plan for work and a plan for their finances, and if they go on holiday or vacation, they probably build a plan for that, but they may not have a life plan. So we suggest that when people think about their purpose, it doesn't have to be complicated, but just to be thinking, what am I here to achieve? In my personal and professional and social life, what are the things I would like to do to improve, my overall well-being, and to approach life intentionally, and even have a plan to help keep them focused in the right direction. And then every day, as they schedule their time, they could just say, okay, what are the next right steps I can take to move in that direction?
Mm-hmm. That that's remarkable, Steve. That's remarkable. So, like, do you have any advice for others feeling called to shift paths later in life?
You mean like for those who are struggling, any advice or counsel for them? Is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah. Well, if there's only one message I would want most people to hear, and this is for the people listening or watching this, but also it's for all the people they know, including those that are very close to them. Is I mentioned this before, but it's very important to understand that we all struggle at times. We all have insecurities, and we're all sad or down, and we're all anxious. And most of us find a way to cope through with life that includes addictive habits. So nobody's unusual or strange when they're in that situation, because we all are. But when you understand that, and for people to know it's okay not to be okay sometimes, but they don't have to stay that way. And to know that if other people are struggling, they're probably not talking about it. They're keeping it to themselves, but that actually is almost a destructive way to go about it. It's much better if we share our issues with at least one other person or get some help. Just by doing that, it begins the process of healing. So for anyone struggling or for people that they know who are struggling, I would say just help them know that there is help, healing, and hope out there, right? That there are practical steps people can take to move in the right direction. To know
Mhm.
that you're not the only one hurting, that millions of other people have been where they are and they've gotten better as well. And that spiritually, right, there is a higher power and a God who will be with them every step of the way. So when people are struggling, they can still have hope and they can have purpose. And hopefully that gives them enough incentive to just keep taking the next right step one at a time.
Mhm. Your words carry a kind of permission, like permission to listen to that inner calling, even if defies logic or disrupts a path we thought we were supposed to stay on. And the way you speak from the experience gives it so much weight, Steve. Like you are leaving proof that transformation doesn't have an expiration date. And it's a message that so many of us need to hear, especially those quietly dreaming of something more.
Yeah. Well, I have the privilege, I think, of now doing what I do, right? And it was a lot of the struggles that I and my family went through, right? And in the world of recovery, people tend to learn to be more humble and accepting of their own issues, but also more compassionate and empathetic about the issues of others. That's a natural out recovery. So it's a recovery, whether it's done in a group with other people or through counseling or a therapy, or even it's kind of a self journey that people go on. Recovery can be a wonderfully transformative experience, but it often I think gives us a sense of humility and awareness and self-acceptance, but also empathy and compassion for others. So it's something I had to learn. I'm not sure I was designed that way, but as God often does, He uses our toughest times to do some of His greatest work, and He'll use our struggles to do wonderful things in our lives and in the lives of others.
Hmm. I agree 100%. Now, you emphasize learning from others' mistakes to avoid repeating them. So, can you share what's one timeless principle that's changed your life?
Well, when I was going through recovery, I actually had I think two or three epiphanies that happened sort of all together, right? And I've mentioned them using different words, but I'll kind of explain them how they struck me, right? What changed me. One was that many of the world's worst problems are not only treatable, they're potentially preventable because there are millions of people who've recovered from substance abuse and mental health issues, right? They may not go around talking about it to their friends, but there are many success stories. But I thought that was an epiphany, right? That even though our biggest struggles are treatable and in many cases preventable. The second epiphany was the way to prevent issues from getting worse is to learn to live life better, to learn to develop a practical set of life skills that help us emotionally, mentally, socially, spiritually, and personally. But most people, are sort of making up for themselves how to live life effectively. They haven't taken the time to read books or listen to podcasts or things like that. But it's very encouraging to know that we can prevent issues in our life by living effectively. And so really it was those two epiphanies where I kind of wanted to take that message to others, right? Rather than to wait until people's lives come apart and they're severely impacted, to help them know that they can take proactive and intentional steps ahead of time. And it will help prevent problems from happening, but it'll also bring more peace, joy, and purpose into their lives on a daily basis. So those I think were the transformative epiphanies that struck me and led me to do what I do now.
That Such a solid advice. Like it's amazing how one And like that kind of wisdom saves time, energy, and honestly, a lot of heartache. Thanks for sharing something so simple but so impactful.
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
And
yeah, it's fun. It's a calling, and it's something I enjoy doing.
mm-hmm. There's deep freedom in knowing that. And listeners, if today's episode reminded you that your next step matters, don't wait. Take it and follow Steve's work at Life Improvement Steps. Dive into his blog or books and trust that you are never too lost, too late, or too broken to start living intentionally. Your healing spark is already within you. Just take the next right step.
Okay, good. And anyone who's looking for some practical and hopefully encouraging help can just go to lifeimprovementsteps.com, and we have resources there for dealing with anxiety or dealing with addictions, but also just being more productive and improving our relationships and being more intentional. And so just anyone there, I would encourage them to check out lifeimprovementsteps.com and find some help to take the next right step.